Hey guys, and welcome back to a special episode of Fortune Theory. So, what we're going to be doing now is just like a little Wednesday special, and we're going to be doing this during the release of Loki, which is probably the reason you clicked on this video. So,
Yeah,
I'm Oliver, and this is Patrick. We haven't
there you go.
changed, we're not variants of each other. There you go,
No,
little
no.
little Easter egg. Yeah.
Of
So yeah,
course
we
you did.
thought the first episode's just come out today, so there'll be a link. So if you've got Disney Plus, you can watch it. Episode one, we're gonna have weekly episodes. There's 6 episodes coming out in total, so we've got 5 to go, and then obviously the Marvel's assembled behind the scenes stuff for those media enthusiasts like me and Patrick who love things like that. Everyone else is probably just like, we only care about the episodes. That's
Just
fair
get the
enough.
episode.
Feel the same. But yeah, let's get to the point because we don't want to babble on for hours about this, but
Yeah.
at the same time, we do. And we're
We would
sorry.
if we, but we just want to make it short
Spoiler
and sweet.
warning.
And
Spoiler warning. So we
yeah,
do
we're talking
apologize in
about episode
advance.
one. So
Talking about episode one, so full on breakdown. I've literally just come from it, so I'm fresh. So
yeah, I
here we
watched it
go.
this morning. So what did you think? Straight away.
I
What's your
It was
thoughts?
pretty much what I was expecting it to be. I felt like it was very reminiscent of the trailer, which makes me feel like there's a lot that they're not telling us from
Okay.
all the promotion from it, because a lot of it was like a story combined from the trailer, and it worked really well.
Yep.
I liked a few little nods and Easter eggs to Mephisto. I don't know where they're going with that. I hope that
Right.
there's a reference to that and he's in the show. That'll really make up for the fact that he was not in WandaVision. I, I'm not hugely familiar with any chemistry between Loki and Mephisto in the comics or in relevance to the TVA, because they all exist as characters or organizations in the comics, but I never put the two and two together. But yeah,
No.
I thought it was a really great episode. It was really deep and impactful, and I felt like you got to see more of a side of the logistics and the planning behind Loki's mischievous madness. So shall we say,
Yeah.
without getting the complete tongue twister. And you got to see a really I saw facial expressions in his character and attitudes that I never thought I'd see, and it was only because it was the moment he accepted that this so-called fantasy in his eyes of the TVA, it's not bonkers, it's not nonsense, it's actually a real thing, and it's quite a shock to the system. And he then has to accept that the rest of his timeline in his main variant version is real, which is where he gets to the point where he decides no, he's not going to go back to the timeline just so his mum can die, then his dad can die, and then he can die. He's going to live out his days choosing his own path, but he's going to cooperate with this organization that's apprehended him for destroying the sacred timeline, as they say. Which, for those who don't know, their version of the sacred timeline is basically everything we've known from the main canon of the MCU up to this point. Not saying Loki
Yeah.
isn't, it's just set in a branch reality set back in 2012. But then he's taken to an area that's more, shall we say, caught up to the present times in our main reality, but it's not set in the main reality at the same time, because the TVA is a place that exists outside of time and space. It's almost like the dead zone. Yeah, just to point out, the TVA is set at the end of the what they call the sacred timeline, the MCU timeline. So after the universe is basically like destroyed, it's imploded. Sorry, I've just cut to this for a second because I've had a camera issue. Okay, yeah, and or whatever it's called. For anyone who's watched Peter Capaldi's Doctor Who, I feel like a lot of people haven't. There's an episode where Clara's boyfriend is killed, and he goes to this like sort of dome-like universe place, and there's the whole like delete option and all that sort of stuff, and basically he's dead. And there's like he has the interview with this guy, and he's like, "Would you like to be cremated?" And it's like, "You know where you are, don't you?" Sort of thing. Like the location literally looks like and reminds me of that sort of like place where like he's dead in his own reality now, kind of, but he's not, if that makes sense, because he's been taken to an area that he can't be found or contacted from that timeline he came from, which he's now made himself a variant for, because that timeline is now a new timeline now because he's changed stuff. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing. It's so complicated. Time travel baffles me more than people getting baffled by algebra.
And this is
And
that's where
yeah,
my that's what well I'll quickly go on to mine
time
before
travel
I
is
go.
my algebra. I love algebra in maths. Like I'm great at that. But
I'm terrible.
time travel in time travel
I
in
love it.
film, or the logic of it in real life, is baffling as well. Like I
Mm,
understood it when they did it in Endgame, because you had these simple Avengers traveling back in time, which also in the episode we find out is the TVA accepts that because that was meant to happen. So that's why the Avengers aren't getting arrested, because they meddled with time.
mm,
Because you'd think that they should be, but no. It's the fact that someone changes the path for themselves
mm,
by doing something that contradicts what should still happen anyway. Um, all the Avengers were doing were just taking things and then going to bring them back. But the problem is, um, Loki picked up the Tesseract in Endgame, breaking the reality of what he should have done. Um, Everyone else was just carrying on like normal. But saying that though, the Hydra agents from Winter Soldier, who were having this argument with Tony Stark and Thor, in their main reality, they didn't stop um, Tony Stark from having a fucking heart amputation or whatever it was he was having, because Ant-Man cut his cord.
yeah.
That wouldn't have happened in the main timeline. So it it always contradicts itself. But I think it's like Easter eggs. They're like, and loopholes and plot holes that they're just like, we're not going to bother with it because we just want people to just enjoy it for what it is. And I'm
Mm.
like, I can accept it with Marvel because I can turn around. I just love Marvel, so I can accept it with it. So yeah, it's a
Same
bunch
with
of
me and Nolan.
complication.
But
Yeah,
I thought it was a like really good like pilot, and it was like a great way to start. I obviously wasn't sure how much they were going to reveal or show of like trailers and teasers we've had, and how much they're going to get into it, and like obviously how much I know versus your typical Marvel fan, of course. You Ollie. But the only real criticism, like the only critique I can give it really, but at the same time I loved what they did because I didn't know that I've watched the trailers and I knew it was going to be dealing with like time being, like the time travel, just knowing about all of time and knowing about every single event that's happened in someone's life, or like in Loki's life, and then seeing that unfold in this first episode, seeing like Loki arrive at the place, it's a really cool establishment and really cool setting. Um, but when they started going into slight details, I slowly realised, and it's actually going to have to be something that, dependent on what happens with the rest of the series, I hope they do it right in regards to how you need to tell a story that involves basically, with because of time travel, and especially not just being able to time travel, but they know everything that has happened and everything that is going. They just know all of time. They know every event, what's happened and has happened, which is again a bit why I'm slightly against. Well, not against, but I find odd why they go in to obviously different moments in time to like time police basically for different moments. Obviously that has to
yeah.
happen, but if they know once they're what is the official name? Is it the T? What's the
It's the
abbreviation for
TVA. It's the
TVA?
TVA, which is the
Time
acronym for
variance
Time Variance
of
Authority.
authority. Yeah,
Yeah, so their mission is to basically they have to go.
they're the police for time basically,
They're
making
the
sure that
time
the
police.
main
They
timeline.
monitor everything that ever happens, and like it happens more than once because that's time,
Mm,
isn't it? Like,
yeah.
and that's their reality. And if in one attempt when it
Mm,
happens, and that was obviously when the Avengers traveled back in time in Endgame. Those they were returning. They weren't
mm,
returning to their time, the times in their timeline. They were going to the the next time it was happening, if that makes sense,
yeah.
which is where that comes in. If I feel like that's probably I feel like there's probably a
Like
better
this
way
is
to
the
say that, but yeah,
complications you get when you
things
have
happen from
like
start
knowing
things happen
everything.
from start to end. So like what's happening right now, our podcast,
Mm,
you know it's gonna happen again because we're gonna
in
our
another
versions of
timeline. Yeah.
ourselves will go back and read and do will go back and do this podcast, like, but
Mm,
we wouldn't have done it yet, if that makes sense.
yeah.
Like, that's
It's my only
the most
critique so
logical.
far
Yeah,
is if you do know and if you do know everything that's going to happen, then you just do it all at the beginning and you'd solve all the problems straight away. Which is what happened. Which is what is it's the right way to approach a story based on a plot device where you literally know everything that's ever happened and going to happen, what all of time. So that's the only thing so far. Is obviously like why would you be notified of something now that's going to happen or has happened to go and fix it? Because if you know all of time, you'd have already done it. And so this is why I hope. And
I don't think they do. I don't think all of them do. I think like there's
I
a
know the
certain
evolving
level of like.
timelines, other timelines can open, but again, that comes into the paradox of knowing if you've known everything that's going to happen, then you would have known about all these new timelines and then coming together or whatever.
It's the things that they don't know, I think, because clearly they don't know about what this threat
Well,
is
again, this is
and
why hopefully.
how to deal with it. Because remember that line in the episode where he's talking to the judge. I can't remember her name now.
Yeah.
She's got a huge connection with Kang the Conqueror, I think, in the comics. But that's stuff for Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania because he's going to be the villain in that, and hopefully there'll be some huge relevance to that and Thor: Love and Thunder, considering it's Loki. But Owen Wilson's character Mobius M. Mobius, or Agent Mobius, if you like, that's his name, goes up to her and he's like, "I've got a hunch." That's not something you say if you know, unless you're being cryptic about it. So he's got a hunch that this Loki can help defeat the Loki that's causing trouble in like
Yeah.
the alternate timelines and is messing things up for them.
And this is
I don't know
why
if there's a link there. I feel like we'd find out as episodes go on, but
yeah, and this is
yeah.
why I hope that they just do a story evolving around time manipulation and different multiple timelines. I just hope they do it right, and hope they don't like end up basically creating what would be a paradox. Although they are fortunate in that because it's like multiple time. It's not just one timeline beginning to end. That's the whole point of their like authority is to keep the timeline in order and all these multiple timelines like coming together and like not creating havoc, which is the whole reason Loki's there.
Brilliant.
But yeah, I'm hoping that the series just just do it properly, please. And then, but that's why I love this series because it is.
I mean, it's
time.
been so like with this episode being like what it is. It's like we had 51 minutes to enjoy this minus credits. They've literally gone really. They've hit it off with a bang with this first episode, and everyone knew this was going to be great. Like literally, they knew what direction to take, how to go about it. The episode's called "Glorious Purpose." And that's obviously a huge like quote from the first Avengers film, from the comics, just something Loki sees of himself. He believes that he is burdened with glorious purpose. He even admits that he doesn't really want to be a king. He just considers it his birthright. But that's his mindset about it, but it doesn't necessarily mean that's not what he wants.
Yeah.
And he really goes into depth with like what his goals are post if he'd won in the Avengers film and things like that. And I feel like compared to like because I remember we were doing the podcast on Cruella and Joker last night, which is going to be something you probably see after this, and we were discussing about how like villains in animated movies and whatnot, you don't really need to know much about them in terms of motive. All you need to know is that they're the bad guy sort of thing, but like you don't need to know about all the in-depthness of their intentions and whatnot. Like they win, but then what sort of thing. Like that's not really something you know too much about villains. You just think, oh, they win, but then what? Now we know with Loki but at the same time we don't because I felt like he made it up a little bit as he went along. But he was like, yes, he wants to be the king of Midgard. Then he wants to go on to rule Asgard, his own like city. I kind of figured that that's probably what he would have done. Then the Nine Realms, which is obviously what Asgard protect, which includes both Asgard and Earth, aka Midgard, plus 7 other realms. And then eventually space in the universe.
Yeah.
I expect. Yeah. Control. So like he's a power hungry control freak. Like, God of Mischief. That's literally his ambition because he feels like that's what he has to do. Not necessarily because he wants to, but he feels like that's what he has to do because that's all he does know how to do and wishes to do. Even if it's not for that exact outcome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Besides a couple of things, I almost prefer this to Falcon Winter Soldier. So far, anyway. The concept at the moment is really intriguing. Only because like recently Nolan amazed me with his new film, and then because of that same whole plot, like the same whole concept. It's a different concept, but it just deals with the time.
I hope something
So
about this series makes you obsess more about Marvel than Nolan.
we'll see what happens. You know that Marvel have decided to go down the route of like they've obviously always ever since multiple timelines they've hinted at the ability of back in time, forward in time, whatever. But now they have full control of it with the TVA. We can see what happens, and it's going to be cool to see Loki like basically defeat himself in some way or not.
Well,
Or
I've heard about Lady Loki being in the series, and that's a massive like kind of character slash like sub character from the comics. And she or he as in turns into she, or she as in turns into he. I don't know. Um, like they just end up coming to blows. And I don't know if it's like I doubt Loki's gonna get like a sex change and then like boot himself back like he was doing with that weird key thing, and then be like, I've changed my mind, but it's too late because he's created another variant of himself that's now going to travel back in time. And it's like that's what I meant earlier when I said about it being relevant.
right.
Or if it's just because he's done what he's done, which has led him to be possession of the Tesseract, traveled back in time. It's led to a chain of events that now have another Loki doing a whole cable where in Deadpool 2, where he's like traveled in and around time to cause mayhem for this organization. But it's like that version of Loki is a future of this variant of Loki who's like traveling back in time to destroy the TVA.
Mm.
That would be
Yeah.
that's the weird dynamic of it. And thing is, within this timeline, our actual Earth normal timeline, not saying Marvel's not normal, it is normal to me. Okay, um, we could end this with Patrick loving Marvel and me hating it, or nothing changes,
I'll be
or
amazed if that happens.
alternatively, nothing changes. I love it.
Nothing changes.
Pat hates it or finds more reasons to critique it, but yeah, we're gonna
If we
do.
switch, that
So
would
this
be
is the first of
amazing.
our 6 episodes of it.
Mm.
Anyway, I doubt we're gonna do a video breaking down BTS. What's the point? Like, unless they add some deleted scenes that we could break down, I wouldn't really see much of a point in that. But we're just testing the waters out with this video, basically. Well, with these Wednesday exclusive videos, along with what we would have already been doing in the week. So this will still add to our episode count. So this will be like
this week for you.
Yeah, so we got Baby Driver, and then
Next
we'll
week
have
will
this.
be the
But
Cruella and Joker
yeah,
talk, and yeah, I think that's as far as the schedule
Yeah.
goes anyway at the moment. But Loki, episode 1.
but yeah, they'll still be called like episode 18, 19, all that sort of stuff each. So there won't be much of a distinction, but you probably don't care about that, to be honest. You just want to watch the video. And I was like, well, that's completely fair enough. But yeah, check out on Disney Plus. It's out now. There's another episode coming out Wednesday the 16th next week, and so on for the next 4 weeks after that. And then we're in the final week where we'll also get Black Widow as well. In the UK, that is. Obviously, unless you're elsewhere and you can see it earlier or later. I don't know. We talk from our own selves, so we don't know what's going on in the US or Europe.
We try to keep
But
track
yeah,
of it for you.
we try to keep track, but
links below anyway. Yeah.
UK is probably the best people to watch this. Really, British people, just the people in the UK, because we'll be more up to speed with those in terms of content of release and stuff. But yeah, until next time, guys, I'm Oliver, and this is Patrick.
Thanks for watching, guys.
Cheers.